manager, and here I can pop out my chat, right? That's the thing that I can do. There we go. Pop out chat. And then I guess we might as well do the same for you to just have them side by side. That way maybe I'll pay attention to both of them. Let's go live! And a couple minutes later I also... Oh no, I do have a full water bottle. Let me go grab it and then we should be good to go in texturing this little son of a bitch here. I did test some things out today before starting the stream, but I'll get to that in a moment. Let me go grab my water bottle because I'm gonna need it. I just refamiliarized myself a little bit with Substance Painter again because it's always a bit of a bother after like 3 months away from it, trying to get everything to work, specifically with like it baking properly and not interfering with separate meshes and stuff like that. Which is why I have Blender open here. Let me real quickly open this up. And I think it's Control 1. There we go. I changed the names of my stuff, as you can see right there. That used to be high poly underscore arms, high poly underscore cloak. I made a mistake there. The mistake being that I used a prefix for it. So I put the high poly, low poly before it. Apparently Substance just doesn't have a system to deal with prefixes. It just assumes that you have suffixes. So I had to change everything, re-export it again. Suffix, this is real bad drawing. But you get the point, right? Everything before the suffix itself. Let me reset that. There's probably a button to do that better. So everything before the suffix itself needs to match between the low poly and the high poly version. All that was kind of out of whack, so I had to re-import a couple of times. And I really didn't want to do all that on stream. So I figured, you know what, let's just see if I can get this to work in my own time during the workday. And then when we get to stream, we won't have to troubleshoot all that because it's going to be annoying. It's going to make me look like an idiot, which, to be fair, I am. But I've got all that working now, so we don't really need Blender anymore. I've got Substance Painter here. So let's open up a new project here. Unreal Engine 4 is fine. I know we're working on Unreal 5, but it's still just the same PBR stuff. You've been looking forward to this stream. I'm very glad to hear it. Why? I just started cutting that tree. Very glad to hear it. I've been looking forward to doing this texturing stuff too. I don't know how long the texturing is going to take because I don't know what I'm exactly going to do with it. But we've got the low poly version here. So Windows will give us like a little preview of it. That's the low poly version that we have, which is just under 100,000 verts at this point, or faces rather. I don't know how many verts it is. So there we have that. And then if we go into like the little croissant up here, we can go into baking. And here we're going to need to bake a couple of things, and this is going to take a hot minute. So we import the high poly model. Like this is the kind of thing that I have to remind myself of every time. Like which button do you go, and then everything falls into place. So this then uses the low poly and the high poly meshes. Let me quiet the music down a little bit because it's a very loud song. To project all the like geometry detail into a normal map for the low poly stuff, which is the low poly we have UV unwrapped. So we're going to do the cloak separately from the rest, just because it needs a like higher radius. As you can see, if we just use the radius we have right now, the red areas is areas that are not gonna get sampled. So we need to, in order to get all of the detail from the cloak projected, we need to increase it to this. But that's going to result in like overlapping issues with things like the skull. So we're going to do these one at a time. Starting with the arms. And now we can make these much lower, because all of this stuff doesn't matter, because we're only going to be baking the arms at first. I probably could get away with baking the arms and the rest of the body at the same time, but you know what, I don't really care. So that will now bake down. Now, this is the thing that got me messed up while trying this out earlier today. I want to set the matching method to by mesh, and then it's like, oh, by matching now, RuneScape is blocking it partly. It's going to be looking for things with the suffix. Again, important to note, it is a suffix, not a prefix. Low. And I called mine low poly instead. And the same thing with the suffix for high. I call them high poly. So the moment I update that, you will see that it starts matching up the cloak low poly with the cloak high poly. So now it understands, hey, these two are the same mesh, so use this mesh to only project onto that mesh and nothing else. Greetings back. The high poly version is just, I'll just go in Blender real quick to show you. Kind of done with the decimate modifier instead. The cloak is the only thing that I manually retopologize, because it's going to need to deform and stuff like that a lot. So I did that manually, because the topology for those is going to be a little bit more important with the simulation stuff. Anyway, now that we have all that set, we can go through some of the more specific things. So we have the down here, right? We have the settings for all of the texture maps that are going to get baked. Normal and world space normal don't have anything specific. ID I don't really care about either. Ambient occlusion, I want to set self occlusion to only use the same mesh. I don't want the occlusion to be calculated based on the cloth. You might want that in this case. There's an argument to be made like, yeah, but like the occlusion would work between the arm and the cloak. It creates problems, okay, in this model. Trust me. Trust me, we're going to just stick with same mesh only. And the same thing with curvature, self-intersection, same mesh only, position. We could do either full scene or per material. I'm going to do per material, I think. This will just create like a gradient, like a three-dimensional gradient, similar to a normal gradient, but for position, just like absolute position instead. So that's going from like 0 to 1 for like blue, and then green is, I think, this direction, and then red is that direction. So it's just asking how big those bounding boxes should be, from where to where it should count those. Thickness is just the thickness of the mesh, which again we want to only occlude with the same mesh. And then we could also do something with height, bend normals and opacity. I'm not going to though. And that's everything there is to that. So just walking through that real quick. I want to set the output size to 8K. We're not going to export these as 8K textures. I want to be very clear about that. That would be insane. But as this is just like an intermediate thing, I want to be as much detail as possible while I'm working on these things. And then when I start exporting them, they might be either like 1080 or 4K textures. So with all that out of the way, I can now bake my selected texture set, and you will see it's going to only show the arms, and it's going to bake those textures. So let's do that. And this can take a while because, again, it's projecting 8K textures. My audio is a bit low. That could be, it shouldn't be, but let me... Yeah, no, it really shouldn't be. I can go into my audio settings real quick in Windows and check. But I'm at like minus 10 dB, which should be pretty good. Yeah, it really doesn't like me doing stuff simultaneous with it baking while I'm also streaming. I can bump it up a little bit. Like here, give another like 5% maybe. Let's see, how is that? That is the same. I'm gonna wait a moment here. Also, RuneScape is running. That's not making things better, is it? I'm gonna wait until this thing is done baking this texture set, and then I'll fine-tune it a little bit more. But I feel like maybe just like you have your audio low. Your audio is a bit, I mean mic gain. Yeah, no, I know, but if I just talk like this and I look into my audio settings, I am right where I should be. Like, now that I've added like 5% especially, this is pretty much where I should be. I think I'm streaming at 1080p. Yeah, I think I am. I don't think I'm streaming in 4K because my internet connection wouldn't like that. Okay, so we've done the arms now. So let's move on to the body. And the body is, I believe, the ribs and the spine. So let's see how much closer we can get. Not much closer. So yeah, I probably could have just done these at the same time. But I'm going to do them one at a time just because. Which I also should point out that this mesh is going to be 4 materials in total. The arms is going to be 1 material. The ribs and the spine is going to be 1 material. The entire cloak is going to be 1 material with the like little wrappings included. And then the skull is going to have a material on its own because I imagine that it's going to have like a close-up in a cutscene somewhere. So having like a lot of detail packed in there would probably be a good thing. So let's bake these textures. Could I have just saved the baked data from when I was doing this earlier today? I could have, yep. Maybe I should have, because this does take a while. But I wanted to walk through it, because anybody who's like interested in this stuff, I don't really feel comfortable enough with Substance to like be making tutorials on it or anything. I'm dropping a few frames because this is quite like GPU intensive, I imagine. So yeah, I don't really feel comfortable enough with this software to start making tutorials on it, but I think it might still be useful for some people to like see this go through. So I figured I would just redo it on stream, and my PC is not liking it. I did order a new mouse though today. Remember how I've been complaining for months about the fact that my scroll wheel is broken? Today I finally fucking snapped, and I was like, I'm buying a new mouse, and I'm buying the mouse that I've wanted for a while. So I'm gonna get my new mouse tomorrow, which means I'm finally gonna have a scroll wheel again, which is fucking wild. But more importantly, I will have a mouse with 13 buttons. Well, every mouse has at least 3 buttons, which is left, right, and middle mouse click. But then I've got 10 other remappable buttons, 2 of which are of course going to be like remapped to next and previous, like back and forth. Well, then I've got like a bunch of other buttons. I think one of them is like a sniper mode, meaning that it's going to lower your DPI as long as you have it held in. Which for gaming is really cool, but also for like for editing purposes, it's really nice because you have like these little sliders in like Premiere and After Effects, and even in Unreal to a certain extent, and in Blender maybe. Having like a button that adjusts your DPI when you press it for sliders might actually be really nice, because in Premiere you can hold down, I think, Control to slow down how much the slider moves when you move your mouse, and Shift to speed it up. Unreal doesn't have a feature like that, which is like severely annoying. I might be streaming at 720. I think I'm streaming at 1080. Can I check while I'm live? Let me check. Output, streaming. Yeah, that should be at 1080. Should be at 1080. So yeah, having that that functionality there for adjusting the speed or the sensitivity of sliders by having like a physical button for that on my mouse would be amazing. So hopefully it actually does work properly that way. I'll do the skull next actually, because the cloth is going to need a very, very big radius. I don't think I can... I can get this a little bit tighter, but not that much actually. I also realized, by the way, that I'm going to, in the eyes, I'm going to add a little bit of extra geometry once we get back into Blender with a new material, and that's going to be an unlit material. So you're going to be able to see in through the nose, into the back of the skull, but not through the eyes. So the eyes are going to feel like they've got this like endless void inside them, because nothing beyond the eyes is going to interact with light. So even if you shine a light straight into it, it's going to remain pitch black, because that material is going to be set to unlit. I really like working with unlit materials because it's a really neat effect. It's really quite nice. So let's bake that one next. Yeah, 13 buttons is like an insane amount. I might have not had it big enough. We'll see in a moment. 13 buttons is like actually insane. It's amazing. Like combining that with like auto hotkey and touch portal is going to be amazing. Well, not specifically touch portal, because touch portal, for anybody who doesn't know, who isn't in the Discord and hasn't been keeping up with me freaking and fanboying about this, touch portal is kind of like a Stream Deck, but you put it on your phone instead. So instead of paying like $300 for a bit of hardware with like, what is it, 30 buttons on it, which are remappable, what you get instead is like a touchscreen with pretty much infinite buttons on it, and you can remap them. You can like combine buttons to make them like wider or taller or whatever, and it's like $15. So it's much nicer, and it's much more programmable as well. It's like there's much more depth to the programming that you can do for those keys. I do plan on eventually getting a tablet to use that with, because right now it's just on my phone. I hope that I'm not cutting out, because it is complaining about encoding overload, which I probably should have seen coming. Once we get through the baking of these maps, which we're only going to need to bake one more set of maps after this, we'll be fine. But the thing that the touch portal can't do is maybe it can, but in a very roundabout way. It can't listen out for button presses on your keyboard or mouse, which is a little bit annoying. It can do it the other way around. When you press a button on your touch portal device, it can simulate a mouse or keyboard press, even at like a low level, like operating system level, which is in some cases needed. So that's really nice, but you can't say, hey, run this macro when this button is pressed. But for that I have auto hotkey. So yeah, it might be the case that live streams just don't go beyond 720p on mobile though. Maybe that's, I don't know. I personally don't really use YouTube too much on mobile. And when I do, it's definitely not live streams, so that might just be a limitation of the platform. I don't know. I'm here to bake a bunch of texture maps first and foremost. And you see, this is one of those things, right? I remapped today the escape key to one of my mouse buttons, and I'm gonna have 13 of the damn things starting tomorrow, so that's gonna be great. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with remapping like auto hotkey stuff, or just normal keys to those remappable buttons. It's gonna be a fun little thing. Okay, last set of texture maps, and then I'm actually going to like stop probably lagging out on stream, because I'm imagining that the stream is lagging as all hell, because Substance uses quite a bit of computing power when you actually make these maps. So yeah, there's a little bit of bad like projection or topology here, because I need to go quite far out for the max frontal distance. So let's bake these texture maps, and I'm going to just hope that you guys can hear what I'm saying. Still, I don't know. Some carriers will make a limited resolution on mobile streams. Is that a thing that like carriers can really impact you being able to not select certain qualities on YouTube? I guess they could have like deals with Google, because I don't know where everybody watching this is from, but that feels like a thing that would be happening in America. Not gonna lie, feels like very American for Google to have like backdoor deals with all of these already kind of monopoly companies to have that as an option. Your view has not been lagging. That's good, because my Twitch FPS says it's horrendous. So maybe it's I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's only the video portion that is freaking out and the audio is doing fine. I think that might be what is happening. Because I'm getting like error messages about encoding overload, but that's a video thing, right? And it's because my GPU is being overused. It just means that I need a better GPU, but hey, one thing at a time. Again, this is the last texture map, and then we've got everything. This one looked nice. Anyway, can you do a tutorial on in Substance? A Mari tutorial? I'm assuming you mean a mini tutorial. I just did a very quick like run through of how to set up like this texture baking. And as we go through, we'll probably like play around a little with some generators and stuff. Again, I'm not particularly like comfortable working with Substance. I only work with this like once every so often. But now you can see we've got this low poly model, and it looks like the high poly model. But if we like go up real close, starting tomorrow, I'm gonna have a good scroll wheel. I fucking promise you. And you can see it's actually like flat detail, because these are baked normals. This is not geometry. We're looking at the low poly version now. So that is fantastic. And that is, for everybody who was wondering during the sculpting process, like, why the hell are you sculpting all this geometry that, like, this is not gonna run in Engine Man? This is why. There's also a little bit of fuckiness going on here, I realize now, but I'm going to just hope that that doesn't come through too much in the material. So now, over here on the left-hand side, we have a bunch of like basic materials. So we can say, hey, we want like stylized wood for the skull. And then it will just make a wood skull. And if we go to like the layers here, it's just a texture that's being applied. So it's not exactly what we want. We want something a little bit more fancy. And for that we have smart materials. And smart materials are pre-set up like more procedurally. So if we say, hey, we want this one, this is like hold damage or something like that. It has an entire folder with all kinds of procedural shit, which is going to load any moment now. Gonna take a second here. We'll get there. Surely, at some point, maybe. Maybe not. It's a bad example anyway. Let's do machinery. There we go. So it uses the geometry detail from the high poly version because we've baked that down. So it can use the high poly geometry detail to like make the material for the low poly, and procedurally just applies masks and stuff to show different layers. So we've got, if we break this one down, we've got a metal base. This is just a color. This is just a color with like metallicness applied to it, right? Then it adds a layer of dirt, and if we open up the mask here for that, we've got the mask editor, which should come up with properties, but apparently I have that somewhere else, so hold on a moment. I think we have somewhere in here, there should be like a properties for the generator. There we go. Usually I think that is just docked in here somewhere, like down there. It gives you all the properties for this mask, right? So we can say we want to blur this mask a little bit more, and again, if I turn this off, you can see it's just making things a little bit more dark. And we can influence. I don't think it's good to show it with this one. I think like the dust, yeah, the dust shows it a little bit more. This one uses hold on. This one uses a little bit of a more clear generator. So we can see here the teeth, for instance, because there is like a cavity there, there's like curvature. Dust would accumulate on top and inside of that. I think that's actually something that the dirt might be doing. No, not too much. Never mind. But we can say, hey, we want to give this a little bit more grunge. I think it's probably best to just do this with the rust, to be honest, because the rust is the most obvious to show this off with, because it's the most drastic effect. So let's show this off with the rust bit. We've got this ambient occlusion slider over here. So like down there, we've got like a bunch of sliders which use the ambient occlusion and the curvature and the world space normal maps, which all the maps that we've just baked, right? We did all that baking so that we have that data now, so that we can use this with these procedural materials. So if I say, actually I don't want this to be driven too much by ambient occlusion, we can pull this back, and you can see that it's starting to take less effect on this layer. But then we can say, oh, but I wanted to like impact things that are part of the curvature map a little bit more. And we can see the different maps down here. So if we cycle through it with the C key, this is just the base color, this is the height, and these are the outputs, by the way. So this is the entire output. But we can go down here to the mesh maps as well, and this will show you the normal map that was baked into the mesh, a world space normal, and let's look at the curvature map, right? So this will show you the curvature of all the geometry. So it's now using this as a just grayscale map, and we're saying, okay, use that for like 60%, and then it applies that to the mask, and just like that, it will then create this material based on that. So you can use world space normals also a little bit, and maybe like even less ambient occlusion. And you have like very powerful materials here. And this is a pre-made smart material. You can make your own smart materials, and it's intended that you do, of course. All that said though, that was just a little bit of a demo of how these things work, because people might want to know how Substance Painter works. I think this is the first time I'm doing a stream with Substance Painter. It might not be, I don't know. If it isn't, it's been a while, and most people probably weren't around at that point. So Substance just has a stylized bone material. So we can just apply that, and there we go. We've got a skull. There's also some geometry clipping through there. Doesn't matter. Now that we have these things baked, we can go back into Blender after everything is baked out, and we can just adjust geometry a little bit more. We couldn't do that before, due to the fact that everything needed to be lined up as closely as possible for this baking process. But now that we have these exports, we can go back in, and these are just going to be texture that will be applied to UV space anyway. So we can fix it up a little bit later. Besides, I think you're not going to see that anyway, because we're going to add like unlit geometry to there. So we've got the stylized bone material, and this is very easily just like a base color and then like a dirt map. And the dirt map is like just a mask editor, so that just generates a mask. And actually, without the levels, I think I like it better, if I'm being honest with you. Teach your patrons how to do a gun like Luigi's mentioned. The vacuum weapons could be great. That's a very specific request. I don't know that I'll be doing that. There's also like what part of it are you looking for? Because for the most part, I think it is just a when you press the button, it checks if there is a ghost close to you, and if there is, it plays an animation. I think that's kind of like with that you'll be 80% of the way there. Yeah, okay, so let's go into these levels and play around with this a little bit, right? Because this way we can impact the contrast of this mask. And we can do some neat stuff with it. And at this point, if you're like familiar with working in Photoshop, this should start feeling quite familiar. And if you are not used to working with Photoshop, this probably isn't familiar. But like, you need to have like a starting point somewhere, right? I actually don't know that I necessarily love adding this dirt. Like if we disable this, a little bit probably can't hurt, but it's like very much affecting the inside, which makes sense. But let's get rid of the dirt for the time being. Just use the other mask, and then let's add a layer of our own, shall we? I think that'll be fun. So in here, I think we can. One of these is a new layer. Add effect, add mask, add layer. There we go. We pull that into this folder. And we'll make this a very neat color. So somewhere in here we have the base color and the height and the roughness and all that kind of like. So these are not just color maps for the base color. These are like layers for the entire material. Like the entire PBR, which is physically based rendering, texture sets in every single layer. So you can get real fucking fancy with this, and frankly that is kind of beyond me. So for right now, we're just going to use this to set like a base color to red or something like that, and I'm going to apply that based on a curvature. That way I'm hoping to get like all of these sharper edges, maybe. You can also paint them on, I should point out. It is called Substance Painter at the end of the day. But we're going to do it with the generator first. So we add a white mask or a black mask, depending on what we want. And then if we go back to the left-hand side here, we've got a bunch of different stuff. So these are the normal materials, right? These are the smart materials. This one right there, those are the generators. And these are just procedural, like programmed stuff to work based on certain maps. So we've got like these dirt cavities, for instance. If I put that onto this layer, it will not do that much, seemingly. Because this... Why not? Do I need to do this the other way around? Do I add it as a black mask? And then add those cavities? I don't think it matters, actually. I'll just play around with it a little bit. Most of these things use ambient occlusion, and it's like quite aggressive with the ambient occlusion. Maybe I just need to reset the base color again. No, I don't know what's up with the base color for any of this, if I'm being honest with you. Let's use a different generator, because this is kind of weirding me out. Cavity rust. I just want to show off, like, stuff. It's not really letting me. Yeah, I'm cutting trees, and I didn't empty my wood bag. Already starting to look good. I mean, hopefully it's gonna get a lot better. Hopefully. And so what is the nice thing about a lot of these things is that we're just applying flat colors and masking them on top of each other. So it actually just doesn't really care about like any of the UV stuff. So there's not going to be any visible stitches. There's like a lot of ugly UV seams on this mesh. Not a problem, because we're just layering this based on purely like geometry information. My dude. I don't know why this is not working. Do I like need to set the opacity anywhere? It autosaves every so often, which is nice. It also crashes sometimes. Or almost crashes anyway. Hopefully it's an almost crash and not a just like full on crash. Because baking those texture maps did take about 20 minutes. Talking about which, let's save this. That was just a test project that I did earlier today, so that's fine to be overwritten. Oh, I think I know what might be going on. Let's empty my inventory properly this time. Yeah, Substance doesn't really like me doing all this stuff at the same time. So what might be going on here is that I'm... No, that's definitely not it either. In that case, I am actually straight up very confused. Why is this not showing up as the color that I'm... You can turn off certain aspects, by the way. Very fun to point out as well. Let me show you something that I do know. Oh, sorry, there we go. You can turn off and on specific maps for your output for every layer. So if we want this layer to only affect the color or only affect the normals or whatever, we can do it in this way. For this one, I probably want to have the normal and the roughness, because the thing is, like, I have the idea of having like some red paint or You could see it as blood, maybe. That's entirely up to you. Which probably should be a little bit more shiny as well. So we can increase the roughness, or decrease the roughness rather, on this quite a bit. And let's get rid of the... Oh, no. Let's get rid real quick of the mask. Or just set that mask to entirely white. That should just pull that through. I don't know why it's not showing me... Is it because I need to paint this in entirely? It might be, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I think it is. There might be a better way to do that. There is. Okay, so I made a mistake. You don't want to add a empty layer. What you want to add is a fill layer. If you add a fill layer, that entirely is just a flat color. I figured it out. So now the entire skull is red. Okay, we're back on track. Again, I don't use this too much. So after adding a fill layer, we can now say, hey, I want to like detect the edges, which maybe we want to like edge strong. So this will be a very strong detection for the edges. And now we can see it only shows up as red on the edges of the geometry, which is actually a really, really cool effect. Yeah, fill layer. Took me a little bit to get there, but eventually we did. And now we can go into the mask editor and we can start having a little bit of fun, because this uses the curvature, so we can decrease the curvature a little bit. It's not exactly real time at the moment, but we'll manage. And we can increase this until we feel like this is pretty good. Then we can decide whether or not we want to like use the world space normals as well to fill in some redness. I don't. We can even use the position gradient, right? So this will make it, in this case, more strongly affected on the top and less so as we go down to the bottom. Which I don't think is relevant either. But we probably should increase the thickness a little bit, which makes all of those lines slightly thicker. That's maybe a little too much. And once we have all of that done, this thing just sharpens that up. So if we don't have that, it's a very minute difference. You probably can't even see it because, frankly, I can't. We can start adding more stuff to this. So these are the... no, not those ones. Those are fillers, brushes, smart masks, I think they are. No? Can I just add those by right-clicking, maybe? It's been a while again. No, that adds a layer. You can add steps to these as well. I'm just looking around real quick for what, how you do that. Because the idea is, after we've done all this like procedural stuff, what I want to do is I want to add a paint layer so that I can specifically paint out bits that I don't want to be red. Like these bits over here, I don't want to be red. I only want the redness on the actual edges. But this does take in like the normal map as well. Which maybe we can even say, hey, mask editor, don't use the normal map. That might also be a thing that we can do. We can just say, don't use world space normals probably. But then still, the curvature map also takes those things into account. But you can exclude certain maps from this if you wanted to. You can erase that you don't want the effect, like the teeth. Yeah, you can. That's what I'm trying to get at, but I'm just trying to remember how to do that. Because what you can do, like, the thing is, we have like this hierarchy of layers, right? This entire thing is like one material, and we can even mask out this and then add a second small material on top of this if we wanted to. So just to show what I mean with it, like aluminum. Now the entire thing will become aluminum, but if we then add a I don't fucking know, like dust, soft, whatever. We can add that to the entire folder. And now that entire like smart material will have a mask applied to it as well. So we have the bone, and on top of that we have the smart material for aluminum, and then we can stack this up and up and up and up. So we've got like 3 levels of, or really as many as we want because we can keep making folders. But generally we have 3 levels of hierarchy, which is like entire smart materials, individual textures, is what you can find in those. And inside those individual textures you have generator layers, which are like your masking layers. You can also draw in manually. That's what I'm trying to find, because one of the generator effects that you can apply is just a paint layer, which just affects everything under it with a layer of paint that you can do manually. It might just be like somewhere in here, surely. Let me look around real quick. We're gonna figure this out, okay? Okay, add generator, or add paint, or add fill, add levels. You can add filters. I'll just show you real quick, zoomed in actually. So if you right click on any mask down at the bottom here, we get all of these options. I don't know what anchor point and color selection does. I think color selection is just like a keying effect, maybe. Filters are things like sharpening. Compare masks, I think, are like mattes that you can use. Levels is the thing that you saw me use before. Again, if you use the Photoshop, you know what a level is. A fill is just a fill. Add paint is what I was looking for here, and then generators are all of those like procedural things, which is also quite great. So let's add a paint layer here. And in that paint layer, we can say what we want to paint in. So now we can start like painting, but it's painting in red, and I don't want that. So we go back up here somewhere. I think we can set this to... Yeah, so we can set this to black instead, and then we will be painting black. And since we're just influencing a mask, we're just painting black and white. We're not actually like painting red. We're just painting part of the mask. So now you can see I can start erasing bits of red because that is now being applied as a black part of the mask. So that way I can paint out all of these little dots that I don't want. There we go. And this works again much the same way as you would work with Photoshop. It works on a layer-based system, so whatever is like physically on top of another layer will override or take priority. And this entire work process, and that is the most important bit, this entire process is still procedural. Like, even the painting I'm doing here, it's just a different layer on the masks. So it's non-destructive. Like, I can just say, actually, I don't want that paint layer, and then everything returns. So nothing I'm doing here is, like, permanent until we start exporting. At which point, like, the project file still has all of the procedural stuff. So again, this is the exact reason that people, including me, are like, yeah, Blender materials are great. And like, there's very little that is here that is like technically impossible in Blender. Some things are, like blurring. It's the thing that I keep coming back to. But it's just like the convenience and the like how powerful these tools are is really amazing. And that's not even talking about working together with Substance Designer. This is just Substance Painter, which maybe at some point we'll do a Substance Designer stream. If there's one program I'm less used to than Substance Painter, it's Substance Designer. I've only used that for like 2 texture maps, but there you can. This is for making like materials that you can export. Substance Designer is more for making texture maps, so it has like a lot of noise patterns that you can like do multiplication with each other, and it's got like tiling textures and whatever. It's got a lot of that kind of stuff. And you can see now that we're actually just painting in. This is pretty real time. Like there's not a lot of delay here, so this is very responsive for the most part. It also has pen pressure support. I'm not using a tablet for it at the moment, just because my my micro USB cable is absolutely busted. And it only works in certain angles. I just need to get a new micro USB, but it's 2024, and you would be surprised how difficult it is to actually get a micro USB cable and not a USB-C cable in 2024, which is fair because it's like micro USB is a very horrible connector, but it is the thing that my tablet uses, and I'm not buying a new fucking tablet because the thing that I have is pretty good. And if I'm buying a new tablet, I'm like buying a good one. Right now I have a One by Wacom, which is like their cheap $50 tablet. It's pretty good. If I'm upgrading to something with the screen, because just being able to see, like not having the disconnect of drawing on a tablet and not seeing where your cursor is on like your in screen space. You get used to it pretty quickly. Like you develop some kind of intuition for it, like hand-eye coordination starts developing for it. Still, it's just much nicer to actually like just put your pen down on the screen and immediately know like, okay, this is what I'm working on at the moment. But as with so many things, like there's a lot of things that I want, but it's like something that I don't really use often enough at the moment to really bother investing that amount of money into it. Sometime, maybe, especially when I get into doing some more art assets for this game, I probably will look into it a little bit more. But right now, the only real art assets that I'm doing are these character models, because they are like... The character models themselves are relevant for making the boss fights. They sell dirt cheap adapters. Yeah, they also sell cables. Don't get me wrong. Like if I want to buy a cable, I can. It's just then I have to order a cable online. Like no in-person store is selling those things anymore. And that's kind of the thing. Like I bought a USB hub last week. Just from like a physical store. It's like, oh, let me try to grab a micro USB cable while I'm at it. Well, no I didn't. I certainly didn't have that as an option. But I can definitely just get one if I order them online. Like there's this website, which is literally like this Dutch website, which is literally its name translated is allcables.com. And they literally sell all cables. Like if you want a cable, you go there, they sell it. It's really cool. I never have to worry about like, oh, where am I gonna get this cable? It's just that website. They literally sell all cables that you could think of. Like I've never had to buy a cable and find out that they don't. Fuck! And find out that they don't sell it, is what I was gonna say. Yeah, the Substance Painter is shut down incorrectly. I'm well aware. I am well aware of that issue. Thank you very much. Let's see. How do the materials work in Unreal? Do you still need to make them Unreal, or the materials in Unreal work the way you want them to work. I can open up. I don't really have anything set up at the moment in Unreal to show you very well. But I can show you real quick. Except that I've been logged out of my Epic Games account for whatever fucking reason. I've got a better idea. Instead of doing that, let me just open up my project file. This will take a moment. There might be an autosave. That's actually a good point. Recent files. It does autosave every so often. I just did a reinstall last time I installed it, so there's not a lot. Maybe there's like autosave in the directory for it. Let's see. Doesn't, like Adobe Premiere, for instance, and I think After Effects as well, have a folder in the directory where the project lives that just has autosaves in it, like a couple of versions that it keeps track of. This does not. It just autosaves every X amount of time, and it just overrides whatever it had. So if you don't, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So the materials for that it outputs, like it has a preset for Unreal Engine, which just packs everything properly up for most optimized Unreal performance. I don't really have my enemy material set up properly for it yet, but let's take a look anyway. Because what I have is somewhere in here, surely I have something. Yeah, so we've got this like Reaper body material, right? And the parent material to which is the enemy material. So this is just like a Unreal material like you would be used to. It's got like a bunch of texture map inputs, and then it's got like a couple scalar parameters which do stuff and whatever to have this dissolving effect. So you can just implement these texture maps that it outputs in any way you like. And then the texture map it outputs is just things like a... Hold on. One moment. Just like a base color map, right? This is just the albedo map. And then it also outputs a normal map, which you can use. And it also outputs... And this is quite relevant. I'll be going over more of this in my material introductory, like, basics course. After the inventory course is done, I've already started recording a course that goes over the basics of materials and, like, everything about it that you really need to know. You might wonder why, like, emission and metallic and roughness aren't set here. Like, emission and metallic that's fine. That makes sense. I don't know why the default for metallicness is grey and not black. Probably should look into that, but that's not relevant right now. Because what it does is for roughness, and I think it's roughness, metallicness, and ambient occlusion. All of those are just grayscale textures usually, right? So we have, I think, I'll just take a different material that uses a, yeah. So we have like a, for the pressure plate here, which is a different material altogether. Like this is a roughness map, it's just grayscale. So what it does is it figures, hey, if those three are all grayscale, we don't need to export those as three different textures. What we do instead is we pack those together. So it puts one of them on the red channel, one of them on the green channel, and one of them on the blue channel. So that when you're inside Unreal, you can just pull out of the red to get the roughness map, pull out of the green to get the metallic map, and pull out of the blue to get the ambient occlusion map. Theoretically, you can also put something into the alpha channel if you want to, like, also add in like a height map or something like that. So that way you can get 4 different maps baked into one image, which saves like a lot of memory. Let me check. I have one material somewhere in here that has a packed material map, which I haven't implemented yet because I'm lazy. I think it might just be in textures somewhere. Well, this is also a pack map, but not one that I made. Yeah, no, actually it is one that I made. Still not what I was looking for though. Let me cut down the next tree. Oh, this is something that like a freelance dude made for me. So this is the red map, which is the, I think, occlusion map for this one. It's called ORM, so it's occlusion, roughness, metallicness. So this is just the occlusion map. Then if we look at the green, this is the roughness map. And this is the metallic map, which is, it's not metallic, it's a stone coffin, so obviously. And then we also can put something in the alpha if we want to. And that's all packed into one text. And that's also what Substance does. So when we export this, those will be packed into one single texture. Was that a very long answer for a very simple question? Yes, yes it was. The material for, you probably saw that somewhere in here, right? That's somewhere in here probably. For the mana and the HP. So yeah, that's just like, let me just set this to viewport real quick. Hold on. I'm getting very distracted. That's just like the bottom right of the screen here. And you're right, that's just linked to a parameter that's based on the HP. So if I get damaged, it goes down. If I use some mana, the mana goes down. If I regain some mana and HP, which I can do by standing on the save point, it will regain. I'm not doing this in the most optimal way because it's just like these progress bars that I'm using. Well, it's not technically a progress bar because it's kind of programmed from scratch. They update every like event tick instead of only when they get a new value, but it's only like 2 of them. Well, technically it's like 8 of them because at this point we're getting really, really distracted. Like we're on a tangent inside of a tangent here. But if I go into my HUD widget, you can see, hey, these are different colors. And that is because I've got a separate one from MP 0 to 100, and then 100 to 200, and then 200 to 300, and 300 to 400, and so on and so forth. Because during the game, as you gain like souls or experience or whatever you want to call them, you can level these things up. So I can level up health, and that has like a second overlaying health bar, which is something that I really like in the old Kingdom Hearts games, is that it's not just one health bar that like scales how much, like either how big it is, well at first it does, but or like how it displays or whatever. It's just when you get over a certain amount of HP, it just starts adding a second health bar with a different color. And I really like that idea. So I just kind of took that. Initially I tried to do this a little bit more optimized, but I just ended up like going, fuck it, I'm just gonna stack 5 of these on top of each other and call it a day. Yeah, it's a little bit more complex than that, because of the way the material for the circular progress bar works. Like that only really, like if I want to implement different colors into that, that's probably going to be needlessly more complex than the way I have it set up right now. What it does right now is just like a lot of math. So that's update XP, just a lot of math. So what it does right now is it just gets like player attributes, it gets your maximum health value and your current health value, divides that, creates a 0 to 1, That's just for the first HP bar. And then for the second HP bar, what it does is it gets your... let me check. It gets your current HP value minus 100. It clamps that between 0 and 100. And then it just divides that by 100. And then for the bar after that, it subtracts 100 again. And it does that again. And the same for MP. So technically it's like every tick, it is setting like 10 different progress bars or something like that. Which is technically, I mean, it's not ideal. But it's also something that's only going to be present on screen once. Because this is the player HUD. So it doesn't really matter that much if this is not technically too optimized. Like if there's a slight misoptimization in an actor that is going to get instanced like 100 times, if that adds up. This is just a one-off thing. So for the most part, like, yeah, could I spend a few hours reworking this system and it like actually not having an effect? I could, but I won't. Let's go back to material painting. I definitely could make a system where instead of it being a 0 to 1 parameter, if it goes beyond the value of 1, I bake it into the material that it uses different colors. But I also probably should make this in such a way... Let me add a fill layer again. I probably also should make it in such a way that it only updates when the actual HP value gets updated and not literally every frame, because that is insanity. To do that. That much I might get to. Specifically because it is so many different health bars. It's a little much to be updating all of them every single frame when they're not changing. I don't know, I'll only do it really if I end up running into like a performance issue and I figure that that is the thing that is bogging me down, which, if I'm being frank with you, the chance of that happening is really slim, because it's just a simple UI element, man. It's just a little bit of trigonometry and like a little bit of color data. And frankly, because of this blueprint, it might actually get like optimized on compile time anyway. I'm not entirely sure about that. Don't quote me on that. Okay, let's retry this. Make this very non-rough. Would it look cool, this metallic? Let's keep it not metallic for now. And add in... Let's actually try to make a generator from scratch, just because it's fun. So here we can say generator based on all these, and then it adds in, like, these are the generators that you have. You can program your own generators, I'm pretty sure. I'm not entirely sure how that works, or even what language you need for that. So we're just going to use a curvature here. And yeah, I think Substance, if you're like doing any amount of texturing work for your art, it really does. In a certain way, it just pays for itself, right? Because if you would spend like 10 hours in Blender doing texturing work, and suddenly in Substance you only spent 3 hours doing it, you just won 7 hours. And assuming you value your time at like anywhere between like $20 and $50 an hour, let's say 30. If you saved yourself 7 hours of work, you saved yourself $210 worth of work, technically speaking. Even if you do that once a month, I think the subscription for it is like $20 a month, and you also get Substance Designer with that if you really want to play around with that. So I think that is very, very worth it to do. Oh, I'm also an idiot. You want to add a mask to it first. And then to that you want to add a generator. Designer is more similar to the way the Blender nodes work, right? I can these substance designer. There we go. I'll just show real quick. Designer is more so for making textures. So I have, in this case, like the catacomb rigs, which are both of the textures, like the texture here for the ground, for instance, I made in Substance Designer. And then the thing that I just opened up is this. So this texture map that I made here is just a tileable brick texture. I also made in Substance Designer. And this is more akin to what you might be used to in Blender, except it has a bunch more different nodes. So we've got this brick generator node here, and we're just adding some contrast to it. I'm inverting it. I use that to blend with a scratch material map that I made here through some noise. So that just makes some scratches, adds that into those bricks. I also use that same brick generator blended with those scratches to make the colors for it in this gradient map, and then I blend that, and that ends up being the base color. I added some grunge spots, which is just a texture that it offers to drive its normals. That's why you have these little like wet spot looking things on it. That's just like the normals of this texture from that grunge map. And then I also added some ambient occlusion, and I used this as a height map as well, which you can see if you glance at this, all of the bricks are like a slightly different height because this is using displacement with the height map as well. And then the ghosts that are going like through this, that's a thing that I just did in Unreal. But it's also driven by the height map. So that's what you can do in Substance Designer. It's got like a bunch more useful nodes than Blender. Like, for instance, I can pull off this and I can say, hey, I want to blur this. This is the thing that I keep going back to. But there's a blurring node in this. Which I'm still blown away that Blender doesn't have this. But we can also like go into the library, and we've got like a bunch of like pre-setup textures. So we've got like this directional noise, like a dirt texture. Just like zoom in here for you for a moment. Like crystal texture, like these fur textures. It's got a lot of stuff to work with. It's really cool. I'm not particularly like comfortable working in it. For the most part, I'm also going to close down Unreal actually, because otherwise stuff is going to crash again. For the most part, I just kind of fuck about, just the same way I do in Substance Painter, but it's fun to work with both. Oh, by the way, for this curvature thing, as you can see down here, we have got a couple of different modes. Like we can do masking around the edges or around the cavity. So now it's just applying things to the cavity. So where there's a little bit of a recession in the geometry, it's going to apply it, instead of where there is an edge. And then Dual, I think, does both. We want edges though. And I don't want to use the world space normals. I only want to use the curvature. And then I think I want to set this sharp and fine and soft. I want to set all of these. That's safe because this is where it crashed last time. I want to set these to being very non-aggressive and only like the... Like one of these is the slider that I'm looking for. So we do that and then we increase the contrast maybe by quite a lot. It's not quite... What the hell is this music? You can basically do anything in Designer and Unreal Material Editor. Kind of. Not really, to be honest. Because the Unreal Material Editor is real time. So, in there it is very important to make a distinction between things that cost like operations and things that cost memory. Because sometimes you want to stay light on memory, so you use very little textures and you just do a lot of things procedurally, but that does then use more calculation power. But sometimes you're like, this is getting to be a little bit much. Like, this is pretty heavy, so if we can like bake certain parts of this down into a texture, then we don't have to calculate the entire texture every single frame, because it's just a texture that will be taking up a little bit of memory in video in VRAM. But that's sometimes very context sensitive what is preferable. But like sometimes one is preferable, sometimes the other is preferable. Very slowly. Gonna be adding this very slowly. At some point this is just gonna like suddenly go nuts, right? There we go. I don't know, this might not be doing what I wanted to be doing, to be honest with you. Maybe we don't... Can we say, like, not use the curvature? No, we definitely have to use the curvature from the image output. But technically, I suppose you could make an entire material, for the most part, in Unreal, then save that out as a PNG or maybe even a JPEG, and then re-import that as a texture to use it in a different material. Like, that is something that you theoretically can do, but even then it's like severely lacking in certain things, because things like adding contrast to an image, the way Unreal does that is that function is written in such a way that it will perform well in real time, but the output result of it is usually less than optimal. And I don't think Unreal, for instance, going back to the blurring now, because blurring is actually like quite a computing intensive operation, because for every single pixel you're sampling the pixels around it and averaging them out, which there's different methods to do that, but that's basically what blurring is. And the like more blurry you get, just the further out you go sampling pixels. But that is quite an intensive operation to do on like 2 million pixels at 1080p. So there's ways to do that a little bit more optimized so that you can do it in real time. But Unreal, all the functions in Unreal are written to be more or less always used in real time. And as such, they take certain shortcuts, which might not always look as good. And Substance is very much designed from the ground up to not be like that. It is something that is designed to let you create what you want to create and then bake that down. I'm going to be real with you, this curvature thing is not quite doing it for me. So let's try a different one. You know what? I don't really care. I'm just going to use the edge selection that we had before, because that was actually pretty good. Like, I think it was edges strong that we used before. So what does this one do? This one, oh, that's nothing. That's just a thing that we already had on there. Oh, I deleted two of them. So this mask editor, let me just check out what this does, because I'm also learning here at the same time. We have a generator for mask editors. Yeah, I don't think this just used the normal curvature thing. I think this is like custom programmed. We could use curvature here as one slider. I don't actually mind the idea that there's a little bit more of it up there. Like, the forehead we're still going to have to paint out, don't get me wrong. This might not be very bad. There's going to be a lot of painting that we need to do. It's mostly the skull that I want to look pretty good, and then the arms we can just kind of go with, as you please. I was afraid that we were going to finish these textures before like an hour had passed, but we get so sidetracked and I get new ideas and stuff, so we'll probably be fine. Now, add a paint generator to this, or a paint layer, or whatever you want to call it. Set that to black. There's also this very handy little icon down here, by the way, with all of these like sliders. This icon here just flips the slider. So if you're at like 7.3, it flips it to 2.6. If you're at 0.97, it flips it to 0.245, which allows you to like paint back and forth really quickly between those things. I accidentally removed my paint layer. Holy shit, I'm an idiot. But for now, we just want this to be black and paint a lot of stuff out. And maybe with a slightly smaller... and of course, that is the moment RuneScape starts screaming at me again. For navigation, by the way, it is you hold on Alt to navigate. So we have Alt right click is zooming in and out, or just scrolling if you have a mouse that isn't broken. Alt left click is orbiting, and you orbit around the point that you initially click on, which is much preferable to the way Blender does things. And then Alt right is panning around in the like current camera plane. It takes a little bit of getting used to. I will admit I won't lie. My God. But now, as you can see, because we have that red layer also set to being very like non-rough, only the red spots are also reflective, which makes it feel much more like there is a layer of like... I'm gonna keep pretending like it's paint for monetization reasons on top of the previous material. So it really feels like you're stacking things on top of each other, because essentially... sorry, voice crack. Essentially, you are stacking things on top of each other. Now, not exactly in the same way that like Unreal's new substrate system does, of course, because there it actually is like... Well, no, actually it is very similar to that, because it is fully rendering everything under it still. Substrate just goes a little bit deeper with all that. Yeah, Blender's controls are not great. Like, I've gotten used to them, but specifically for, like, orbiting around an object, like, I don't really love the way Blender does things. But I also didn't really mind it until I started working with Substance, at which point I was like, this is so much more intuitive. And once you get used to the whole using Alt thing, because, yeah, like, it's a weird key to use. It really is. What other program, what other time ever do you use the Alt key? I do for auto hotkey related purposes, but like aside from that, I use Alt on auto hotkey because no other program ever actually uses that key. Also, if you hold down Control and you have like a alpha mat, I think this will rotate your alpha mat for your brush. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it seems like it's like rotating your brush. I've never really used an alpha mat on a brush in Substance though, but I imagine that's what it does. We just have to figure out how to actually set those. Auto duplicate in Unreal. That's a good point, actually. Premiere also uses that. No, it does. Premiere and DaVinci Resolve both use like holding Alt on a clip and dragging it around to duplicate it, which is something that I intuitively did after I started using Unreal, and then I figured out that it also works in Adobe. Like, hey, that's actually really cool. Very glad that I accidentally figured that out. Probably a better way of painting this out, by the way. I should point out. But I don't care, I'm having fun. We'll be having a lot more fun if I have my new mouse. You know what, actually? Do I have my broken cable here? Because I might just try using my tablet anyway. Did I already throw that cable out? I might have. Now I think about it. Yeah, I probably did. Shouldn't have done that. Oh, RuneScape. We're also playing RuneScape at the same time. That's actually making that a little bit more annoying to deal with. Let's see. Can I find a cable? Is this a micro USB cable? Did I just find a new micro USB cable? No, that's my webcam cable. That I never use because fuck that. I see another USB cable here. That is... oh, that's the old one. Well, I suppose we can use this. That's fine. I have a USB hub now, so I can actually plug in like a bunch of USB devices at the same time without too much trouble. While I also like have like 8 slots on my motherboard itself. It's kind of insane. I need to just rearrange things here a little bit for this to work, and then okay, so now I just need to I don't have my mouse key set up properly to use this with. Maybe actually. And then this is panning. No, I have. Never mind. I can. Sensitivity on this is... oh my... oh yeah. If you use Shift and that moves the light around in your scene. Which can be good. I do notice though, just like a personal problem kind of thing, is the moment I start using my tablet, I default back to like muscle memory for Blender shortcuts. So I start using like Shift and Control. So you're going to see me fuck up quite a bit there. But you see how much smoother this is now that I'm using my tablet. I do still make mistakes with the tablet though. And I can still play RuneScape with the tablet. I don't know if RuneScape is gonna love seeing that, because it might think that I'm a bot because my cursor is just jumping around a lot. If I get banned, I suppose I have this stream as evidence. No, it's a little counterintuitive to work with this for me with the tablet, as you can tell, but we'll get used to it. It is so much faster to just paint out a lot of stuff when using the tablet. It's like actually unreal. No, it's Substance, but just gonna sit on that joke for a moment. Just gonna let all of you groan yourself half to death. Everybody's accepted the fact that that was like aggressively unfunny, and we can move on. There might be a way to make those settings a little different. Then again, once I get used to them, just using the Alt key to move around and stuff like that, it's actually not that bad. And it doesn't matter that my cursor or my scroll wheel is broken on my mouse, because you don't use those if you're using a tablet. Which is, frankly, like half the reason that I haven't bought a new mouse until today. Because the things that I use my scroll wheel for, most of them have alternative methods. Like using a tablet in this case, or in like Adobe, I'm so used to just like zooming out, placing my header somewhere else in the timeline, and then zooming back in to move along the timeline instead of just scrolling out and in. Using the like plus and minus keys instead of scrolling is what I mean. Almost everything has workarounds for the scroll wheel, and that's actually very interesting, because that's definitely not for people like me who are just like idiots and break that scroll wheel. It's always the scroll wheels that break for me when I break a mouse, and then I keep using them for like a year because I'm very used to not having a scroll wheel. Hopefully now that I'm buying a little bit of a better mouse, like this mouse itself is like €75, so it better fucking not break its scroll wheel on me that fast. I don't know why it's always the scroll wheels that break first for me. It's probably just because I do a lot of scrolling. Like, a lot of the work that I do when I have a working scroll wheel does rely on the scroll wheel. Like, it does make my life a lot easier to have a working scroll wheel. Getting a little bit of a Joker vibe with the way these edges are working out, aren't we? Hold on. Am I making a Joker skull by accident? I think I am. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Okay. We can work with that. It's not exactly what I had in mind when I started doing this. It's just kind of the way things seem to be going, which is honestly fine. This is one of my favorite songs in the game. Let me open up OBS again and just increase the volume on this a little, because nostalgia, man. Nostalgia's real. You think that this specific enemy is going to get my game like rated R? Because I swear it's supposed to be paint. Like, I promise. It's supposed to be paint. Actually, blue is not a bad color for it. Hold on, actually, no, he's the boss of the purple dungeon. Purple. I think I did get a Logitech MX. Hold on, let me check. I texted my friend a picture of what I ordered, because I also ordered a new chair. I ordered a Logitech G502X. I just ordered the thing that had 13 buttons and wasn't wireless. Because, yes, I'm one of those people who's like, I don't really want a wireless mouse. And not because I think it's got, like, latency issues. I know that that is, like, long been fixed. Like, latency is... In some wireless mice is, like, actually better than wired mice at this point. I just don't like having to charge my mouse, like, at all. I really don't want to have to do that, is the thing. Because I will forget and then I will have no mouse. And I have no real reason to want a wireless mouse because, like, just have a long enough cable or a USB close enough to where the mouse is going to be used and then you'll be fine, right? That's my philosophy anyway. I don't know if I'm going to be painting the inside of a skull, because you're not going to be seeing most of that anyway. Now it's going to probably have a very loud song. Not even that bad. Oh, another thing that might be cool to show off is because this thing has a couple of different materials on it, right? I've separated this into 4 different materials. You can actually turn off all the geometry belonging to a certain material. So I can turn off the cloak. You can't turn off geometry just like on a pure vertex basis, I believe. But you can do it on a per material basis, which again, this is a material software, so that makes sense. And that way you can just... That's not what I wanted to do. And that way you can get under certain bits a little bit easier, which is nice. I mean, if you move around a lot... for me, the thing is, if you are on a laptop, you probably have a lot of reason to have a wireless mouse. I am always in the same position, working on like a desktop workstation. So I don't really see a reason for a wireless mouse, and I only see downsides for my specific use case. Like, a lot of people move around a lot and as such work on laptops and are going to be in like a lot of different situations with their computer and such. For that, I definitely like see reasons to use a wireless mouse instead. Just for me, I don't really find myself in those situations like at all. Oh wow, you don't even like, get that far down, do you? Okay then. Oh. I do get annoyed by the fact that you have to specifically select like certain paint layers. Like, I understand why you need to do that and why it works that way, but it can be a little bothersome. Okay. And we can be pretty rough with this because this is going to be obfuscated by the cloak anyway. Just in case you kind of like peek up the cloak a little bit, like having this somewhat in a reasonable spot, probably a good thing. How did I do this on the other side? Much differently. Can you see that with the cloak enabled? Like, hardly, right? That's probably fine. add a little bit of empty space to this as well. Actually, no, what we're going to do is for this, we're going to set the... I don't know if this will work that way. Yeah, that won't really work that way. We could probably get it to work if we like add another paint layer that just like multiplies itself, or like another layer entirely that multiplies, but I don't really care enough for that at the moment. We'll just do this. What I was thinking is we can make a layer that doesn't just apply a flat color for the mask. Instead, it only it multiplies that flat color with the pre-existing mask, so it doesn't add any stuff where there isn't, but it only takes away where there already is some paint. But I don't really think it matters. Yeah, this feels very painted in, which is kind of the point, but also like not necessarily in a good way. And this is actually a good point to start looking into, hey, this alpha, instead of just using a circle, what we can maybe do is try to find like a noise pattern. Do we have like noise? Will be a little bit like more organic instead of just being a blur that fades out. Oh, there we go. We can use. Can we use April in 3D for this? Like, does that work? I don't know that works. I don't think so. Can we just like scroll? I'll just scroll with my scroll wheel, that's fine. Cells, checkers, circles, clouds, that's what I want probably. So now if we just like now it's a square. I want clouds, but like as a circle. Is that a thing that we can do? Non-square expansion. I don't know. Anyway, point is, now our brush has this like cloud texture to it, which is a lot more pleasant to work with if it also has fall off. Which is quite important. There might be a way to get that to work. But I don't know if I really care enough to figure that out right now. I guess we can use this one, Dirty Cloud. It's a little bit better. Yeah, so this allows you to paint in with like some more rough edges instead. Which makes this feel a bit more natural instead of being manually painted in like it was before. Like a bit, not much, admittedly. Still. I think we're going to also like paint out a little bit more over here. And again, with this more noisy brush, instead of taking everything fully away, we can like kind of scrape some of it off instead. Which feels a lot better. And we'll do the same thing over here to keep some sense of symmetry, which, man, the old key is killing me. I default to using control way too much. And the tree's been cut down. I don't know if those last stroke really did what I wanted them to do. But I actually kind of like this. Like, it looks really weird, I know, but that's kind of the point. Like, this is kind of what I was going for. But maybe we can, like, add in one more layer where we actually just paint things in ourselves. Let's add in a fill layer again, and this one will be like a slightly darker purple. Put it there. Add in a paint layer. I'll just do that with the mouse. No, we won't. We'll add in a black mask, so it doesn't apply onto anything, and then that black mask will add a paint brush too. And we'll start painting in white. So now we have a way to like paint in our own strokes, but I definitely want that to be there's a thing here. If we decrease the flow, is that it? There's a way to make this, instead of being a line, there we go. Oh, it's just a size. Huh, that's not exactly what I was looking for. It's been great having you. Have a good day. I'll probably be like going for another hour or so, half an hour, and then I'll probably also call it a day because I've got like a lot to do tomorrow, a lot of cooking to do. Let's see. We want to probably have this random per stamp, right? Yeah, so this gets more of like that cloudy look that we're looking for. Like we're painting this on, which looks a lot better. And we of course have pen pressure to work with. But there still is like the way these brushes work is it just kind of like stamps in every so often. Because that's how you create a line in art. And I could have sworn there's a way to create like artificially more spacing. That's probably it. Yeah, so there we go. That's what we want. So we want this to be spaced out just right so that we can feel like a little bit of this going on. And with that, I think what we'll do is we'll create a little bit of like extra darkness and purplish around the eye sockets. I don't know if this is going to look good, for the record. This might actually be like the most shitty idea I've ever had. But I do think that that kind of gives the impression of like the darker rings under the eyes, which is kind of nice. So, matter of fact, maybe And after that we can then add some levels as well to influence those a little bit more. So we can say, hey, we want to add some more contrast and make sure that we have like something a little bit more like that maybe. So if we turn that oven on now, that's pretty good. So that's almost 2 hours to paint a skull. But hey, we got sea shanty, so... Now, for the rest, at least for right now, we might come back to this at some point. I'm just going to like put stylized bone on the arms, and we're not going to do too much about that. Maybe I'll add some purple tips to the arms, to like the fingers. That could be kind of neat, but we'll have to like manually paint that in as well. I'll also use stylized bone for the body, so for the spine. And we'll just use the standard one there, because I don't think we're going to do too much with that. So you can see that a lot of like the geometry that we sculpted in, which is what we did for like an entire stream, just sculpting in like high poly detail, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting now to prevent us from having to do this in texturing. Because it's, at least for me, it's a lot easier to sculpt on detail that then these procedural tools can use to create the detail and textures than directly doing it in texturing. For some people it might be different, that's how it works for me. Oh, you can write here, so we can say like fabric. This is my handwriting, by the way, if everybody was curious. That's actually kind of neat. I never knew that I was able to do that. Huh. And before anybody says that my handwriting sucks, I am well aware. Fabric denim, I don't think we really want denim, but like this more basic fabric maybe? I still don't know if I like that texture, to be honest with you. You can just layer these on top of each other because they'll just override each other anyway. You probably want to remove the ones you're not using once you've made a decision. And some of them might impact stuff that you don't want them to impact. This might be the thing that we're going for. I mean, who even actually like physically writes stuff down these days? It's the thing, right? Like, who does that? Okay, a little bit of like weaving detail here probably can't hurt. That's not a bad thing. Probably. Let's look at this dirt map. I don't think this dirt is doing too much other than just making the entire thing like indiscriminately less shiny. Which is a good thing, because I don't like how shiny it is at the moment. I think that might be mostly to do... I don't know, the weave pattern is actually making that better. What is making it shiny? Like, I don't feel like a Grim Reaper cloth should be shiny. Is it just the base that's shiny? Like, what is your roughness? Like, let's increase the roughness. You're supposed to be cloth, for fuck's sake. Not goddamn like spandex. But you know, this kind of works. This kind of works for what it needs to do. You can also definitely see there's a resolution difference here between the inside of the hood and the rest, which isn't great. So maybe we want something that is not projected in UV space. Maybe we want to use triplanar projection instead. How's about that? Just planar projection. Oh, I have to set this for every single one of them, don't I? Or specifically the weaving pattern, that's probably the issue. So UV projection, just triplanar project. Oh, and then the damages also is seemingly UV projected, maybe. Let's see, is it? I can't tell. UV projection, there we go. So that probably triplanar. Doesn't really seem like it's... Yeah, it's not that one. So it is the dirt thing. It is intended as a Unreal asset, just apply cloth detail with the tiling normal map in the material. Yeah, but the thing is, I could do that, I suppose, yeah, because... yeah, maybe. The thing is that this thing is, as I have it in mind now, is going to have a parent material that just like takes in these material maps anyway. So at that point I would have to make like a separate parent material for it, which also isn't great. And especially with like, again, the UVs for this thing fucking suck. So for like a skeletal mesh, you don't want to do like world space projection for the most part. So being able to like project and then bake it in here is, I think, still preferable. But it's not a bad idea. Oh, here, try playing on projection, there we go. Set that to true. That should now still not do what I wanted to do for some reason. Why? It's also not doing this for the weave, is it? Not gonna lie, I'm a little confused. A little confused indeed. I'm just gonna use... Yeah, it's got like a similar issue here. I wonder what the actual issue is. Again, I'm not particularly used to working with Substance Painter, so it's a little bit of a learning curve for me too here. So that's surface detail, uses UV projection. Set that to planar projection, spherical projection maybe. It always just uses, it doesn't change, it's the thing. Is it because I'm supposed to do it in here? That's it. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, so this is it. It's just not the texture that I want. But maybe we can like use like this weaving pattern instead, and then just fucking yeet up the tiling to like 128 or something. Oh, that's actually like, yeah, that's very horrible. I did like the other pattern that we had here. What texture did that use? It's called weave pattern. That's a good start. Hold on, let me try again. Can I figure this out in this material as well now that I've found it? Yeah, there's a tree cut down, I know. Oh, it's in there, and then we... Yeah, okay, figured it out. Triplanar, and that's got that figured out. Okay. I did like this more as a base anyway, so I'll get rid of these synthetic dots because that was fucking horrible. And then... What was it? Was it the dirt map? No, it was the damages, right? This one doesn't have it. It does have like a use triplanar projection, but it doesn't seem to do what I was hoping for. Just in here then? Might just be in here. Nope. This might be what we're looking for. Don't think it is. Let's turn over the weave patterns real quick so we can see. No, it might actually be. Hold on. I think we did it. I think we did what I wanted to do. That said though, the weave pattern probably could do with being a little bit less strong. We just... if we decrease the contrast of it, nah. We just need to add some levels to this. Levels, and then now it does look a lot more like leather coat, which is not what I am going for. But if we go all the way down to just the base and we increase the roughness, that's starting to kind of look like what I'm going for. Yeah. You know, I think I can kind of deal with this. This will be fine. I don't think I really need anything for the spine, at least not at the moment. Again, we can always come back to this and add some more extra stuff later. I'm very likely to revise whatever the fuck is happening on his face right here, if I'm being honest with you. I like the idea. It was mostly meant to show off like the basic workflow of the software. And I still like the idea of like having those like those purple painted edges, almost like the what's the Mexican holiday, like the Day of the Dead, the thing that they celebrate in Coco. Like, I'm not an expert on Mexican culture by any means, like kind of that vibe, but of course this is like not quite that, so maybe just better to like actually paint that on there. Who knows? For now I think we're gonna stick with this, and for now I think I've also been live for over 2 hours, so you can't hear what I'm saying due to the background music, which is like significantly... I can lower it a little bit. But like it's significantly lower in volume than me. I'll have to listen back to this real quick after the stream is done to make sure that my like audio meters aren't fucking up or anything. It was a pretty loud song that was just playing a moment ago, but still, like I am, my voice is going up to like -10 to minus like 5 dB almost. The songs were at like -30, which is roughly the balancing that I use when I edit. But maybe these OBS audio meters aren't entirely accurate. That could very, very much be the case, to be honest with you. So that might be it. I'm gonna leave it there for right now. I'll just go. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going for that Day of the Dead kind of vibe. So I might also do some more with the hands, to call them like that. Like, I'll have to do a little bit more cultural research because I have, again, very little familiarity aside from having watched Coco a million times because that movie is amazing with the actual culture there. So if I'm going to be using that as inspiration, I probably should know a little bit more about it. So I can like do it the proper honors that it deserves. I think that's gonna be quite cool to work with in that way. It's just a little rough at the moment. It does also give me a cool idea as to like all the boss fights and all the dungeons in the game like are color themed. Like the entire layout is if I open, that's not what I wanted to do. If I open Inkscape real quick for my rough draft of the world map, like the whole, sorry for blinding everybody, sorry, no night mode here. The whole idea here is that I'm cutting down trees, is that it's based on a color wheel, right? Like this is just a color wheel divided up into 6 sections, which are the dungeons. So this is the boss that I'm working on right now. So the idea that the colors of these dungeons, they come back in the dungeon design themselves, like the textures that I use in the environment and stuff, and the color of the lighting very much reflects that. All of the doors have colors on them that reflect the color of the dungeon, so at any point like you have a very obvious like colorful idea of where you are, but also implementing those same colors into the different boss fights. Like this one of course is going to be a skeleton, so it's like the Day of the Dead thing. It's also the Grim Reaper, so it fits into that. But like incorporating purple into the design for this guy, and then the boss fight for this having like some red in his texturing, and then yellow, and then green, and then light blue and dark blue, which, yeah, but are those 2 different colors? I don't know, I just needed to complete a color circle. Give me a break. I think that's a pretty neat idea too. So I'm kind of glad that I just kind of went on this tangent to show off this stuff and came up with a good idea accidentally. Anyway, so for anybody watching this as like a little bit of an introduction to the software, again, you probably should be watching somebody else. You can export the textures here. Once you're done, I'm using Unreal Engine 4 Packed as the preset. That's pretty much good enough. PNG, you can use JPEG if you want to be a little bit more optimized at the loss of a slight bit of quality. But you don't have an alpha channel and it's a little compressed, so it's better for memory use. And then we can say the output, like there's a lot of output templates that you can use from. You can make your own if you want to. At the moment it's going to export them all as 4K, which might be a little bit much. We can set them to any resolution that we want. So we can say, hey, I want a 1K export of them, and then we get 1K exports instead. I'm not going to be exporting anything at the moment though, because I'm not entirely sure if we're finished with this. But that's going to do it for me today, I think. We've... on the one hand, we've made a good bit of progress. Like, this thing actually is like a character now, because he's got colors. There's also, like, as little as I actually do this and work with this, because I do everything on my own. I always do like doing texturing because it really feels like this is the part of the process of making a character where the character comes alive. Like if you just go into Blender, like this is the exact same geometry, right? Well, okay, this is the low res version. Technically it's the exact same geometry without normals baked onto it, but even if I enable the high poly version, which is going to take a moment here because again, it's like 13 million faces. It's the exact same model. It's just once you add texturing to it, like now it comes alive, and especially with like the painting in of the purple that I've done, which again needs work. You can see the contrast between the dark robe and the like yellowish, whitish bone. It really, like, I really like this moment in the creation process the very most, which makes it very annoying that right after this I go into rigging and animation, which I like animation as well because again it gives personality to your character. The rigging fucking sucks. Anyway, we've spent like 3 streams retopologizing the cloak. Now we spend 1 stream texturing, and we're going to spend a stream rigging, and then we're going to spend like 1 or 2 streams animation. So this is my favorite part, but also in the whole scheme of things, not necessarily one of the longest parts, at least for me usually. Which is a little bit too bad. We did this in 2 hours, that one skull, and there's more work to be done here for sure. But during that 2 hours, I went on a lot of fucking tangents. Because I knew that we were going to have a lot of time today. And still make some amount of progress. So I opened Unreal, I talked about a lot of things today. Which was fun. For some reason it doesn't work straight from the inventory into the deposit box. Sure, why not? It's been a good one. I'm going to go and... Oh, and after that, we also have to program this fucker. I almost forgot about that. We're not just doing an animation, we're making a game, aren't we? We also have the programming. But that is also fun. I like programming. So, I'll see you all back on probably on Tuesday again. I'm going to stick with this time slot, by the way, for streaming. Either like 6 my time, which is GMT +1, +2, depending on daylight savings. Like, for context, it is 10, not 10, it is 8:15 p.m. right now. So, I'm probably going to either stick on the time slot of 6 p.m. or 6:30, depending. I want to do 6 instead of 5, like I've been trying the last 2 weeks, because it's just horrible with, like, I usually eat dinner around like 5:30. So having to eat dinner at like either 4:30 or like 7, both aren't great options, because at 4:30 I'm usually still working, and at 7 I'm usually starving if I haven't eaten yet. So we're just going to like not actually torture myself for what YouTube says is most optimal, and just do what I want. Anyway, see you all on Tuesday. Have a good weekend and enjoy your Easter.